Yes, I'm a Cadillac Dixon. Man. Okay, we're just gonna start on what it is, you guys. It is Yo Girl Cadillac. Yes, I'm Cadillac Dixon. I'm the Draw My Life Prison Wife. I'm the legally blind artist that is rapping and painting for justice, hoping, girl, to see justice before all face to black. Yes, it's your girl Cadillac. Anyways, today is December the 10th. I actually was supposed to go to church this morning, girl. I wanted to go to church, but it just didn't happen. I got off too late last night, and it seemed like the girl that I was closing with, she was moving like a sloth, like for real. So when we close my restaurant, we usually distribute the task. Like we cut it in half. One person does like the whole lobby, and one cleans behind the counter. So she was the one behind the counter, but it seemed like she was doing more, looking at her phone and stuff. And I was done, but I was like, I refuse. Like, I've done my part. I'm getting to a space in my life where I'm not gonna overexert myself, right? So I had refused to go over because I'm like, girl, you should have been done before me. So we got off of work a whole hour later than expected. So by the time I got home, it was 1 a.m. Y'all know I get home and I go to doing everything, and I decided against it because I really wanted to go to church in the morning. And despite that, I still couldn't get up. I set my alarm for 7. Girl, I snoozed from 7 to 9 a.m. 2 hours of snoozing. And then when I finally got myself up at 9, it wasn't really enough time to get ready and get there. But I'm going to see like when is their Bible study or whatever, because it is in my heart to go to church. And let me tell you, God broke some chains in my life the last time I went to church. And I know I walk with God daily. Well, I'm sorry. God walks with me daily, right? So I already know I have a relationship with Him, and I am so glad that it's getting stronger. It is getting stronger. I am beginning to understand when the Lord is leading me and telling me to do stuff. A lot of times I thought it was like, anyways, this ain't that. This is not that video. But I'm just telling you where I'm at in this day and time, because you know what, though this is my channel, and this is my basically my passion for justice or whatever, and then I do a lot of documenting of my life, but it's also a way for me to look back over my life. A lot of times we think God have not done things for us because we have no documentation of everything that he has done. So I'm in a really good headspace right now, and I'm just, whew, the windows of heaven are open. Let's just say that. But anyways, while I was at work, I got a little bit of journaling in. Not journaling, I'm sorry. Writing on a topic, because I'll get to work, and then that's when my mind would just start wandering. So I came up with a topic. Okay, favoritism. The small cracks that lead to the big divides in a family. Okay. Ugh, something just got in my eye. I'm sorry, y'all. Ugh. Do this now. Or it's probably the content. Number one, this video is not, disclaimer, it's not gonna be that great. I'm guessing because my contact bothering me and my head hurting, and then my carpal tunnel is really bad right now. My hands are inflamed, so my hands are going numb as we speak. Okay, so just bear with me. This topic hit me while working that moment when you are trying to get your mind in order to get through your shift. So you just coming in, you like, oh girl, I got a whole night. When we going, like, you got to break it down. When lunch coming in, I got like an hour and a half before lunch, and then after lunch you break it down to what you got left. Though after lunch you don't want to do nothing of the such. You don't want to do anything, girl. But it was that moment when I have a full shift in front of me, right? And this topic hit me: favoritism within a family. Okay, favoritism caused a lot of detriment in my life, and this is an issue that has caused a lot of detriment in my husband's life as well. But with all the emotional defects it causes, it also caused us to have to be more independent and more self reliant because no one else was coming to our rescue. It is a very confusing dynamic when you're living in a family with favoritism. It is a very confusing dynamic to understand, and when younger, but as you get older, sometimes it all starts to become clearer to you as it did in my life. But many of the missing puzzle pieces in my life I did not receive until I turned 40. Naively, I thought 40 was the beginning of the end. But in fact, it was the beginning of the beginning for me. Y'all know the story I tell about crying out to God and asking Him, what the heck is wrong with me? Why no one liked me, loved me, or even respected me at, at the least. But I did hard down love the same ones that seemed to pay me no mind. Just about my entire life, I took on the mindset that I just wasn't good enough to love, to be loved. Mel Robbins said this once. I love Mel Robbins. Y'all look her up. She has a new podcast, and oh my gosh, she has some life-changing shows on there, like about dealing with narcissism, dealing with being diagnosed with ADHD late in life. Like, girl, really, I'm telling y'all, I getting all my stuff together. When I get the chance, I am gonna be going to therapy, and I do believe I have ADHD, to be honest. So, if this diagnosis goes through, it will be late in life that I'm receiving, that diagnosis. But it's like, if we kind of know why we do the things we do, we could start to correct and fix the things that we do. But so many times we want to think that if there is an issue, then there's something wrong with us, right? So let me get back to this. But a lot of times when you know the issue, now we can address it, and now we can get past it. We can grow, we can move on. But as long as we want to ignore it, act like, oh, there's nothing wrong, girl, I would perceive myself to be a healthy 42-year-old woman. But though I would perceive myself as healthy, there's these things that's internally, that's in your mind, that that something is wrong with that. But we don't like to address it. I'm ready to address it because I'm ready to heal in every aspect of my life, honestly. Like I said, 40 is the beginning of the beginning, not the beginning of the end, right? Okay, so naively, I thought 40 was the beginning of the end, but in fact, it was the beginning of the beginning. Y'all know the story of me that I tell about crying out to God and asking Him, what the heck is wrong with me? Why no one liked me, loved me, or even respected me at the least? But I did hard down love the same ones that seemed to pay me no mind just about my entire life. I took on the mindset that I just wasn't good enough to be loved. Mel Robbins said once that kids rarely say to themselves, whoa, I got some really dysfunctional adults around me. It's just much easier for a child to believe it's their fault. And that is true. Children start taking on that mindset that everything is my fault. But then when you have adults around you that are also giving you the vibes, if they're not outright telling you that, because I've had both where adults in my life that I looked up to were telling me everything's my fault. And then I also had like circumstances pointing to, yes, Kita, everything is your fault. So it's just easier for a child to, in their minds that aren't fully developed, to just blame you. It's clearly you. If every situation, you're the one. It's got to be you, right? Okay. Remember, love is an action word. So your actions toward the person has to line up with the words you speak. Oh, that jumped out of order. That's like a pull quote. Because I get to that later. I didn't restructure my notes. These are just scratch notes from when I was working. Okay, because of that, so I believe it's the child starts to believe it's their fault. Because of that, and several other things. I'm sorry, because of that and several other things, I started to develop low self esteem. I used to have this saying, I'm not no one's favorite person, and that God made me from all the leftover. Gosh, this is blowing. God made me from all the leftover scraps He had after He made everyone else. I felt so defective, and I was. The proof for me was the way others treated me, despite my best efforts. If you are not appreciated and loved by your mother or your child, there has to be something wrong with you. Because those are the two that should love you unconditionally. So that used to be like self-talk that I would say. Not even my mother or my child. Like, it's literally something wrong with me because I'm not even their favorite person. Like, okay, and they both have two different instances of why I got those feelings. Okay, number one, with my mother, I am my mother's oldest child, and my sister is 9 years younger than me. And then my next sister is, I believe, 15 years younger than me. And then my baby sister is 17 years younger than me, right? So I was the oldest child. I also felt like I became the built in babysitter. Um, and at 9 years old, well, not really at nine, I didn't really babysit my sister like that. But when 15 came and the two little ones came, I was not completely raised, right? But my mother would tell me that she raised me, so now I gotta help raise the kids. And it was so many different things. Like, if you have children, you know the teenage years are different from the children, like the child rearing years, right? And it was like I needed attention too, but I couldn't get that attention because the younger kids needed the attention, right? And then I also had a sister that when you have a special needs child, it is very rough. And my sister under me was a special needs child. She was going to special hospitals. She would always get sick at school. There was so many different medicine changes that would change her mood swings. And I think I get into this in my drama, not drama life, I'm sorry, when I was doing my unsung, right? Y'all know how all the famous people do an unsung. I said, heck with it. I'm famous enough for myself. I'm going to do an unsung. But I was talking about that in my unsung, where it was like, because my sister, she was epileptic. And I do remember one time where my mother was disciplining her, and my sister went in the room and had a seizure. Okay. Right before that, my mom was saying, "So what are you gonna go have a seizure?" Like it was like almost like I don't know how to explain it. It's like okay, she didn't really think that was what she was gonna do, but it was like my sister had become so unruly because it was hard to discipline her because when you discipline her she goes into seizing, like she can't take the discipline, so it just became to the point where she did not receive discipline, and she became very her behavior was horrible, like horrible behavior, and then when I would say, Mom, like Chris, I almost put her name, but y'all know Chris, she be on my channel all the time, and Kristen knows that this is what happened when we were children or whatever, but Kristen has changed. I mean, the minute Kristen turned 18, everything just did a 360, right? But it was like anything Kristen did, it was my fault because I'm older and because Kristen is sick. So I had to then pay for consequences of Kristen and myself. If I did something, if Kristen did something, it was my fault because I am the healthy sibling and I am also the older sibling. So then when my two little sisters came behind, so between Kristen and it's about 6 years, 7 years between the other ones and Kristen, they seen how unruly she was and they just picked up right there. That our house growing up was so chaotic. And no matter what any three of the children did, well, four including myself, I was the one punished for it. It was always that way. And then like when I wanted certain attention, like because I'm not childhood, my teenage years, like girl, I still needed attention, but I couldn't get attention for nothing. I was always left out, looked over, not paid attention to. I was this tremendous artist, and like nobody really, yeah, yeah, nice, nice. Go put it on the refrigerator. Yeah, whatever. Like nobody took interest into anything that had to do with anything with me. And then I do remember, and I've made resolutions with all of this. So this is just me telling you about the past. And if you do have children, more than one, do not make differences in them because it messes the children up. It really does. Don't make differences in children. I mean, though you may, and I know parents always have a favorite, but even if you do have a favorite as a parent, try not to show it like that to your kids, because kids do pick up on it and they know when they're not the favorite, right? And it leaves them on this psychological journey of trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with them so they can become, you know. Dang, I'm missing. Am I missing some notes? Okay, that should love you. So with my mother, that was the reason, that I felt like our relationship wasn't the best. Because she, but in the end, she does say, I know I have to be missing notes because I remember writing about that. I gotta be missing some notes. Okay. And then with my daughter, the issue with her father being incarcerated and me trying to overcompensate, and anytime I see her cry, I'm like, no, don't cry, let's go and have fun or do this or do that, or let's go watch a movie, anytime those, so really, so this is where I did wrong. So parents got to learn to admit when they're wrong. So I know I did not raise my child, though I tried to raise my child the best I could. I did not do everything right. I know that. And a lot of times parents refuse to admit that they made any mistakes that anything was done wrong, that anything that they did affected their children, and that's not good. So I have a quote about that. But because I guess I overindulged my child, my child became spoiled. She became spoiled, and she became somewhat entitled, like, and it was like no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. So those are the two situations. Now, I do believe with her getting older, and then her going out into the world on her own, like it's like a child has got to leave and understand life for themselves, right? So by her doing that and having her own child, and that has a way of showing you where your parents is coming from when you have your own child, right? Because other than that, you really can't understand. It's like trying to explain to somebody something that they're not living that life, so they completely don't get like the whole basis of my channel, this prison wife life. Like all you can do is just listen, but you can't really understand it, right? You don't understand until you step into those shoes. There are some that will listen and some that are empathic that would be able to be like, oh, okay, I can kind of understand. So you may have an empathic child that can kind of understand your struggle. But most children are not going to understand until they get older and walk in those shoes, right? And then they're trying to make it with their kids, and then they completely understand it, right? But that was the two things. I was like, for a person, if you're not your mother or your child's favorite person, girl, there's got to be something wrong with you. Okay, so now I have this saying. I kind of skipped around. Y'all know I be busting tables in between, so I can't just sit there and lose my nose, the wind blowing, my hands going to bed. Hold on a second, y'all. Let's just enjoy this breeze for a second. I'm trying to find my spot, but this is my real life. Okay, so back to where I was saying how parents may do things or things may happen, and the parents sometimes will deny it. They'll It's like almost like gaslighting your child that no, that never happened. That didn't never happen. You know that never happened. But the child kind of knows how they grew up, like for real. Okay, so I said it's like having a key to healing. So within this favoritism, the child, the parents always gonna say no, that's not happening. I don't have favorites. I don't do that. I do, you know. So, but the child knows. The child does know that they clearly seen the way that they were being dealt with was different than the way that the other sibling was being dealt with, which I do have many examples of it or whatever. But I didn't understand until the end of my mother's life. I really did not understand why. Why was I the one? So you got to understand, in my life, I have three golden, and I know the phrases now. So those are the golden children. The ones that are favored, they become the golden child. And the one that is not favored becomes the scapegoat. Everything is their fault. It's their, you know. So I was a scapegoat, and I have three golden children as siblings. Marcello is the scapegoat, and his brother is the golden child. I can see the dynamic, and I can see the similarities between how Marcello grew up and how I grew up. But some ways I think it's worse for him, but some ways I think it's worse for me, because I'm like, dang, well, at least, you know, it's half and half with you. You got one golden sibling and you're the scapegoat. But for me, I have three golden siblings. Like, girl, that really makes you feel like, Okay, so why am I the one picked out? The odd one out? I don't get it. But anyways, when you do bring it to your parents' attention, many times the parents will basically, it's almost like gaslighting. They'll tell you that's not true, that never happened, that's not how it was, and it was. The child knows. Deep down, you know too. Okay, so it's like having the key to healing for your child and withholding it from them. Because if you gave them this key to healing, so if you acknowledge that that happened, you also by default acknowledge that you made errors in the way you raised your child or children. And so many of our adulthood issues stem from traumas in our childhood, which I'm just learning this. No, I'm not just crazy like I thought I was. Um, I had trauma growing up, and it was unhealed, it was unaddressed. We can't talk about it, we can't say it, and it just goes on with you. You never get to release it. Okay, if you are a parent listening to me, don't withhold those keys from your children. If you honestly love your children, like you confess to, you wouldn't, you would not. Because here's the thing, they can only get that key from you. Children will spend their whole lifetime looking for that key, looking for those answers, looking for why was I treated different? Why was I not acknowledged? Why was anything I did not good enough, right? And then that's where that little pull quote went, where it said, remember, love is an action word. So your actions toward a person has to line up with what you speak. So you can't just tell people, you can't just tell your child, yeah, I loved you. You got to show that. Love is really an action word. You show it. I didn't grow up in a household where people said, I love you. That it almost seemed like it would kill my parents to say that. And to this day, my dad doesn't say, I love you, but I can tell he loves me because his actions show that. Um, my mother had a different way. She definitely didn't say, um, I remember one specific way she told me that she must love me, but that was weird, right? But I understand. So what we have to understand as children, our parents weren't perfect, so we usually make our parents perfect in our minds, right? That's why it's easy to take on the concept that it's your fault because your parents perfect, so it couldn't be their fault, and it can't be nothing they're doing because parents are perfect, right? So we over um like perfect them, right? And then we devalue ourselves because they have to be, right. But what we don't realize is parents are not perfect, and parents had their own traumas when they became parents, right? So a lot of parents take their unhealed childhood traumas into parenting, and then they pass those traumas on plus more to their children. So these are generational, and this is where these generational curses come in to the family. These are traumas that have been passed on. You were traumatized, so you passed that trauma on to your children. They were traumatized, so they passed those down to their children. Sometimes the curses, the generational curses get broken. And that should be our goal. But you can't break those generational curses until we acknowledge that they're there. We can't ignore them. They don't go away. You can ignore them, but they'll just keep passing down, generation after generation, right? So at some point, we've got to cut it off. This happened. How can we get past this? I did something wrong. You did something wrong. But what I realized, I didn't hear that I love you because that was not the childhood dynamic in my parents' home. Either one, I believe. Neither one of my parents grew up with parents saying that they loved them. It just wasn't spoken. So my mother did love me, but she had a tough love. My mother had a tough love. And her love was to train me. It was almost like a drill sergeant love, right? Training you to, or how Chief love us when he trying to, and I just seen him yesterday, my martial arts chief. Yeah, but I was looking kind of rough, so I didn't want to bring attention. But it did make me want to go back to martial arts. But how he would love you is he would drill you. Yeah, come on now, come on, 10 to 20 more push-ups and this and that. And that type of love. That's how my mother loved. It was training me into being the best. And what I didn't realize, what I realized later, is that a lot of the things, so as a child I couldn't understand why I was held to a different standard. Any little thing I did, or something, it was just the biggest issue. But my sisters could all do like tremendously huger things than I ever even thought about doing, and it's no big deal. Okay, people make mistakes, and I'm like, where was that compassion for me? But my mother was making me independent. I would not be the independent person that I am if it were not for my mother. If she came through and if she did raise me the same way that she raised the other three children, would I be who I am? Would I be that could stand out here on her own, out here on the limb looking crazy, fighting for justice for all these years? 21, almost 22 years. Could I have done that? Because I would have needed somebody to help and support me, right? I still need help and support, but with or without someone's help and support, I'm strong enough to get out here and do it on my own, and it's because of the way my mother raised me. So my mother showed her love through trying to develop me, the development she can see within me. And then she loved my siblings in a different manner, right? But I'm thinking more full circle. God knows what he's doing. He put me in the family he put me into to break generational curses. He put me in the family that I came up in to show that anything is possible. I'm the dreamer of the family, though none of my dreams come true, but I am the dreamer. I am the one that would jump out there 1,000,001 times. I am not the one to talk about doing something. I'm the one to run out there and let's go do it. And then it fails, but then I'm the one that actually went and tried it. Other people just kind of talked about it. And that was developed in being independent, having to call on everything in you to try to find a way. And that's how it is. So yeah, I want to write a little cleaner. I'm sorry, guys, this was kind of messed up, and I'm gonna try to get a little bit better. I'm not really editing. I could probably go back and edit this, but you can only edit on YouTube through the through a laptop and or a desktop, and I still cannot find the charger to my laptop, so I can't go back and edit quite yet. But for now, is what it is. But that's what was on my mind. So if you do have those favorites in your family, think about how it's going to affect the one that's not your favorite. It also affects the one that is your favorite too. It also, what it does to the favorite, it does two different things, right? What it does to the favorite is it makes them less independent. It makes them less willing to see when they are making errors, because it starts making them think they're perfect, right? To where they can do no wrong. And then you come in as the parent and you solidify that. So now that child is going out into the world thinking everything I do is right. That narcissism. Okay, but then the one that is your scapegoat, that is not your favorite, that is the one, oh, it's your fault. Clearly, it's your fault, even though it's the other one that did something. That causes that one to take on a life perspective that they can do nothing right, and they become very self-critical. They become almost self-destructive. So on both sides, it messes them up. And I know at a certain point in your life. So this is the hard part. This is the hard thing. We all come from issues in our childhood, but at some point, the ownership. And I wanted to write about that. That's why I think I lost some of my notes. Or did I ever write that down? It was we load our children down in crap. The things that we grow up, that, I mean, when we raise our children, we raise them with all this crap that they have to deal with, right? But at some point, they have to own their own crap. Even though we loaded this crap into their life, we gave them this crap, this baggage to take along on their journey. Maybe we packed some good things in their bags, but we may have also packed some destructive things in their bags. But now it's their baggage, and they have to, at some point, we loaded them with crap, but they have to own their own crap. So now the crap is yours. Sign it off. You're 18, it's your crap now. And the kids don't just drop it off at 18 and relay it back to, hey, just back to what Mel, what the heck? I gotta get better at talking off the top of my head. Mel Robbins, I was right. It's like what she says, where a child just, it's easier to blame yourself than to say, hey, these are some pretty unregulated adults around me. So now the child is going through adulthood with this baggage that we gave them. And it's up to the child at some point to put that baggage down, to let it go. I am well into my 40s, not well into, because I'm only 42, but I'm at the beginning of my 40s. I'm just maybe late 30s, started unbagging my baggage, like throwing out crap that I do not need. That is not, it's not doing anything for me in this life, right? Gotta let it go. All right, guys, I'm gonna go. My hand going to bed. Me, Money Princess, and I guess if the kids come over, we're gonna hang out. Just try to be a better version of you. Work on yourself daily. I know there's so many people out there in this world that refuse to work on themselves because they either think that they're already good enough and perfect, which we are good enough. We all are good enough, but we're not perfect. And we all can use some improvements. There are some things that each and every one of us do wrong. So evaluate, self-evaluate, and over time, you will become better. But the minute you think that you got it all together, you perfect, you can't, ain't no fine tuning, that is when you have reached your ceiling. You have boxed yourself off, and there will be no more growth in your life. And whatever age you are, you will stay right there in that arrested development, and you will not progress as you get older. So it's about let's live the life the best we could, and let's let our families live the best lives they can. Give them those keys. If the child is coming to you saying that, hey, I wasn't your favorite and you treated me a little different than other, just, I know it's hard to accept it, but you gotta accept it's what happened. It is what happened, so just accept it. Oh, and then I didn't tell y'all, before I end it, so I did a little bit before my mother passed. I was like, Mom, did you even want me? Because I started thinking that my mom didn't want me because, my mother was a scholar. She was always wanted to go to college, but then she had me, so I kind of cut everything off. And she had me at 18. She got married at 17. So it was like she stayed married for many years. She always wanted her kids to all have the same father. But she also wanted another life outside of that. Like she wanted that businesswoman life. But it was very hard back then for her to do both. And I felt like she felt like because of the kids, she wasn't able to. And I asked her, I was like, did you ever want me? Like, because it was a clear difference. And my mother said, I loved you. I just did not have time for you. And that meant so much to me. Because in that, she acknowledged, she didn't gaslight me to think that didn't happen. I never treated y'all different. She acknowledged that I did raise you guys differently. And then she gave me the reason as to why. So now I don't have to go through my life trying to search and find out these answers of why and beat myself up as to why weren't you good enough for you to be one of your parents' favorites, right? All right, hiss your girl Cadillac because this hand going to bed.